doing is building fragile behavior in young people.
Well, and this idea that that's acceptable in our society is a problem. Somebody needs to tell them, that's not your place. Stop micromanaging your kids' lives and let them figure it out, because they will grow from that process.
Owe it to those people to help them.
Wouldn't it be nice if just all of our problems were like a magic wand, but then we wouldn't grow as people?
Hey, life's not fair, and suck it up. Hey there, I'm Jeff Cordes, and welcome to the C.R.A.P Leadership Podcast. My philosophy is about C.R.A.P: caring, respect, appreciation, and praise.
And this is Randy Walensky. Been a speaker, trainer, sales professional, and coach for over 10 years, using all of Jeff's C.R.A.P. And we want to bring these principles to you in your organization. Let's jump in.
Hello, today we're talking about a super important topic. It's important to me. It's going to be important to a lot of you if it isn't already. We're talking about grit. We're talking about emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, and most importantly, this no contact rule that Jeff has just informed me about. And I think a lot of opinions, a lot of my own beliefs are going to blur into this one. We'll see if we can keep it on the rails, but that's the focus today.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was listening to talk radio. I'm a talk radio political junkie, and I was listening to talk radio a couple of days ago, and they talked about a Wall Street Journal article that came out on June 6th, and it was about how universities use notice of no contact to send to somebody if something is going on, and it originated back in the 2008s, 2009s, 2010s for issues like sexual harassment, which there I certainly agree. You know, it was almost like a university constraining order. How's that? You know, and it started there, but now it's gotten to the point where people use it because, I don't feel comfortable around this individual, or this individual was staring at me, and all sorts of things that we used to consider, well, that's life, right? Mm-hmm. And when I read this article, I said, you have got to be kidding me, because I work with school districts. I don't work with universities, but I work with school districts, and they're far more attuned to this stuff, and they tend not to do it. But when I read this thing, I thought, are you kidding me? What we're doing is building fragile behavior in young people, and that's going to get these young people nowhere.
It's so funny that at the age where you're starting to become more and more mature, we're putting people in bubble wrap, right? We're putting people that it's one thing if there's a dangerous situation, there's been threats made, there's been sexual harassment, there's been very aggressive behavior. You start to understand, like, hey, let's keep it. We want you to focus on school. But when you start allowing that rule to be used for anything under any circumstances, it's like a slippery slope. It's the same thing that we could talk about with having safe spaces, right? Some people will defend those to the end. It's the same reason people got called snowflakes a few years ago. It's this thing where you take a generation of people and you compare them to older generations. And especially we see this in the workforce. What now they're saying they're so fragile that if this happens, they're not going to be able to show up. They're not going to be able to work. We've got all these mental health issues going on in our youth, and we want to just keep wrapping them in extra layers of bubble wrap. And then what? We're going to release them on the world. That's not so nice to them. They're going to have more than their bubbles burst when they get into work, and they can't be putting notices on people. They have to figure out how to deal with difficult, pain in the butt, and just jerk people. You used to just have to deal with those people. Nobody was there to protect you from rude comments and bad behavior in the world. And we're kind of nannying everybody. And you, as a leader, are going to have to deal with people that have very vastly different expectations than what your older generations are.
Well, the reality is, the industry is going to have to solve this problem, because clearly people that are coming out of these universities are not ready. They're not ready. And because you get into the workplace, there's conflict. I mean, that's just the reality. There's conflict in life. But you get somebody into the workplace, and I mean, I even heard this. I mean, I'm going back into the 2000s, 90s. People used to, I saw a start of this. People used to come into my office and they'd say, well, that person's being mean to me. Give me a break. half the world's mean. I mean, I used to sit them down and I used to talk to them and say, well, what do you mean by mean? And I'd start to have them explain what they meant. And oftentimes by having that conversation with them, I was able to show them that, well, some people are just jerks. And it doesn't mean that a jerk is harassing you or, sexually harassing you or whatever. They're just jerks. And some people are jerks. Then when I got the opportunity, or oftentimes I would bring the jerk in at the same time. And I'd have them, I'd sit there and I'd mediate the discussion and made sure that they cleared the air and they dealt with the issue and they learned to problem solve in how to deal with that conflict. And I started to see the beginning of that, like I said, mid 90s, 2000s, and it's clearly gotten worse. And our educational system has facilitated that. And helicopter parents have facilitated that.
Don't get me started on helicopter parents. I have a story for
we
you.
talk about that when we do one of our programs together, right?
Yes, and I always talk about the one in that one. Well, I'll tell this first, and then I'll talk about the parents. Is being a jerk or having somebody there who's a jerk and everybody agrees that they're a jerk is a good enough reason to get rid of them as a jerk. If you can't play nice with other people, we got to get rid of them. But we can't have that every time someone gives you a dirty look, you just go right to no contact. There's what we should be teaching our younger people is conflict resolution, crucial conversations, confronting issues. It's the same thing. Like we don't want any bullies in the world, so we want to ban bullying. So then where does it show up? It shows up secretly in text and sneaky and all this stuff. No, tell people how to deal with bullies. Treat them like they're going to be adults that are going to have to deal with a tough world and give them the skills needed to handle those type of people. But let's go on. We'll skip all that to helicopter parents. Jeff and I talk about this in our generation program. Not only do you have helicopter parents hovering above, waiting for anything that should befall you and to swoop down, you have lawnmower parents. They're the more proactive group of them. Lawnmower parents, they want to mow down the problems in front of you and just make it all smooth sailing so you never even have to learn how to deal with bumps in the road. So a lot of this also starts with parents, right?
It does start with parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, I'll give you two real life situations that happened with my kids. My daughter was a pitcher in fast pitch softball. Well, of course, when you lose, who gets the blame? The pitcher. Right? They gave up too many hits or whatever. My oldest son was a wrestler. Both my boys were wrestlers, but my oldest son was a wrestler. And they both faced situations where they felt like they were getting the short end of the stick. And they came to me and they said, well, Dad, will you talk to the coach? I said, no. I said, this is part of growing up. I said, you're a young adult. You talk to the coach.
Yes. No, it's perfect.
And both of them to this day talk to me about the fact that I made them do that. Whereas if I would have gone forward and done it, I would have been, frankly, helping to make them emotional cripples.
Of course. And think about them, like they had to go speak to authority and tell authority what they didn't like and why, and get a response. And they had to do the whole process and go, oh, look, I didn't break. I didn't fall in half. Right. I'll give you a one that's on the same side, but it's on the bad side of that spectrum. Because maybe it didn't end bad, but they wanted to do bad things. So I'm going to put my sister on blast here. This was back when my nieces and nephews, they're both like about – yeah, she's probably not listening anyway. They're about 14, 15. They're working at like a Dairy Queen. Right. And they're complaining about some worker there. And she's like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk to him and tell him what so-and-so has been doing. I go, are you crazy? What are you talking about? That's not your responsibility. That's not even your place. That's the wrong place to go. What you should be doing is maybe giving them a little bit of coaching if they don't know what to do, right, and send them in to talk to them and say, hey, this has been going on. This is a problem. And here's what I think about it. You don't go in there and run over problems. And think of how many times we've talked to people and said, hey, how many people you hire people that are 18, 16, whatever. How many times do parents want to come in? All the time.
For the interview even.
For the interview, to manage conflict, to change things. They want to insert themselves. They are the problem as well. And this idea that that's acceptable, in our society is a problem. Somebody needs to tell them that's not your place. Stop micromanaging your kids' lives and let them figure it out, because they will grow from that process. And that's what we've done. We've coddled them from way beginning, and then they get to college and they need even more coddling but it's been a setup by the parents. That's really the root of the problem.
Yeah, and I think, if parents think they're doing their kids a favor, they're wrong, because they get into the workplace. There are a lot of people whose parents raised them right and taught them that, hey, you got to be resilient. Your boss might give you a hard time, and I always used to tell my kids, hey, and both myself and my wife, hey, life's not fair, and suck it up, right? And I'll say it. All my kids are amazingly resilient and very successful. My two sons are doctors. My daughter is in the educational system, and her and I go around on some of these things. But the point is, she's resilient, she's strong, and she's got her act together. And I keep encouraging her to go into administration, because she would be a great leader. I mean, like I said, I deal with a lot of school districts, and the first thing I come in and tell these administrators when I'm teaching them leadership training is, I'm going to turn you from administrators into leaders. You need to be in front. You need to be getting the job done. You need to be encouraging your people. You need to be coaching your people. You need to do it right. You're not some passive individual, giving out notices of no contact. Come on. You need to be working with your students to say, okay, let's talk about how we deal with the situation. Coach them, guide them, teach them, as opposed to, I think, when I hear this notice of no contact, I think it's just universities just wiping their hands because it's easier than doing the right thing.
It's always easier to avoid conflict. But let's assume, Jeff, that the powers that be, all of society, they're not going to hear our voices on here. They're not going to heed our warnings and change. But
unless this thing goes viral, who knows?
There we go. Let's make it happen. But you know who we can help? The HR manager or the leader or the person listening to this. You have to know what's coming, and you have to know that you are going to 100%. And I could basically prove this to you without any statistics or without any studies. You are 100% going to get more fragile individuals as time goes on. And I'll tell you why. Because everywhere in society, life has gotten so easy. We have myself, Jeff, everybody has gotten softer than like 2-3 generations, because life came at you. It was brutal, it was rugged, and it was hard. And it was a zero-sum game where the zero sum would be death if you didn't excel, or having nothing, having complete poverty. We've put so many safety things in there, and life and technology has gotten so easy that resilience, of course, is going to go down. I mean, Jeff, you actually touched on it. I would say sports is like the last bastion of area that you could really put your kids through and have them get toughened up compared to whatever. Like, that's the last area that they really probably need. But if you don't have that, and you're going to get some people that come in and they're probably a little bit of a cupcakes, it's hard to deal with. So what can we talk about? What can a manager, what can an HR leader do? Just knowing that, hey, I think I got some cupcakes on the team. They're good people. They're sweet people, right? But they crumble. They fall apart. What can we do?
They've never learned and been trained properly. You need to show those people how to deal with conflict. How do you deal with it? Help them problem solve. Help them get better at conflict resolution, as you said, because it's a skill. I mean, it's truly a skill. And that's why I think being an HR leader today is as tough or tougher than it's ever been, because they're getting people who struggle with a lot of things that my generation, and even your generation, because you're at the top end of the millennials, right? That you were prepared for. And I know your dad, and he was like me. He'd tell you life's not fair, Randy. Suck it up.
Some version of that,
for sure. Right. Deal with that. And so young HR leaders, and I actually mentor several young HR leaders, this is one of the things we talk about often. What do you do in these situations? And again, I'll blame the universities. I mean, we talked about this when I was going through my HR program as an undergrad, and then when I went for my master's. And it's like they're not doing that anymore. And so here I find myself mentoring these young leaders, HR leaders, and explaining to them what they have to do to help their people grow, get better, which makes the organization better. You know, and a lot of it is helping them understand how to resolve conflict. And I tell them, if you struggle with it, I mean, I'll give you guidance. I tell them, if you struggle with it, you need to take some webinar and start to get some tools and techniques so you can use those tools and techniques to help your people. Because that's your job as an HR leader.
As a tangible takeaway, I've been thinking about this as we've been talking, because it's like, I want people to have something that when you've got a cupcake on your team, again, there might be good people. What do you do to toughen up those cupcakes, to turn them into something more like a brick, right? Where they can handle things a little bit more. And I think they have to know that you care about them. So a coaching model would be really good.
A coaching model as opposed to autocratic, sit down, shut up. I mean, I hate to say it, I mean, that's when I grew up. That was my dad's model, right? And I realized it wasn't the best model at all. So I tended to coach my people, my kids, and even when I was in HR, I would coach people, encourage them, but then also when they did something wrong, correct them, direct, firm, and we've talked about this stuff in other podcasts. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, I'd encourage you to go back and look at our other podcasts, because this thing all kind of intertwines. But you got to coach them, help them learn and grow, and sometimes you have to tell them, life's not fair. Life's not fair, and deal with it. Because otherwise you're going to crumble.
Well, I want to give them something. I think that there is something of telling somebody it's not fair, but having the crucial conversation. Hey, when you have conflict, the first thing you got to do is you got to go to that person, and you got to have enough inside of you to be able to confront in a professional way and tell them what the problem is. Right? If you come back to me and you said you do that and it keeps going, then we're going to confront them together. We're going to get this problem solved. But you don't get to run away from it, and you don't get to just avoid it, right? Wouldn't it be nice if just all of our problems were like a magic wand, but then we wouldn't grow as people? And part of being successful in your career is having a little bit of grittiness, of being able to stand up for yourself, to speak your mind. And so you can explain that to somebody who's maybe missing out on that and even shying away from different parts of their life because there's conflict there. Think about what they're doing in other areas. You can help them grow at work, and it's going to have a ripple effect throughout their life.
It rolls right into the family. I mean, as part of my C.R.A.P leadership system that I use to train leaders, is one of them is difficult conversations and how to have those conversations. And what I really love is when I get organizations that say, Jeff, our people need to learn that. And then they bring me in and I teach the whole workforce how to have difficult conversations. Because most people don't know how to do that constructively. I mean, constructively, I'll say that. I mean, back when I worked in the warehouse for Chrysler, people took it outside. That wasn't constructive. But the point is, ultimately, we dealt with it and went on, and things were better after that.
And then went back to work, right? That's what we got to tell these kids. Settle it outside, kids.
People are thinking that people are listening thinking I'm Jimmy Hoffa or something. But, that's the reality of what took place. And I'm not a proponent of that by any stretch of the imagination. And we've evolved in that we've learned how to deal with difficult conversations much better than in the day when I was a kid. Okay. Yeah. And we need to use those tools and help our people grow, help our leaders grow first. Because if your leaders know what they're doing, they can help their people, understand what they're doing.
And absolutely. And sometimes people are going to say things that are, off color or inappropriate or wrong. And you should be able to make mistakes and somebody corrects you and then you change. That should be acceptable. Not that we shut everybody out. I mean, we could go on and on. We're getting close to 20 minutes here. We could go on and on about other things in the
universe. This is one I want to go on and on and on.
We might go on and
on. I love this one because I tell you what, when I read this article in the Wall Street Journal, you know me, Randy. I mean, I went ballistic. I thought, come on, are you kidding me? There's times when I see this sort of stuff, and I say, no wonder the Chinese are eating our lunch, right? I mean, and if you're an international business, if you think that they're going to play fair, you're either delusional or you're on drugs. I mean, they're not. And so you got to be tough enough to deal with people in an ethical manner, but stand your ground. And I mean, that's key. I mean, and that's kind of one of my takeaways. You gave one already. Another one of my takeaways is if you're a parent, or even sometimes in HR, you get the right opportunity, you might have to say, hey, life's not fair. I mean, and you don't rub their face in it, but you be honest about it and explain why you're saying that. That's one of the other takeaways. The opportunity comes up. You need to explain to people life's not fair.
Yeah.
And the other takeaway I would come up with is, if you're a parent, be selective about the universities where you send your kids.
I like that too. Well, we'll wrap it up with this one piece, because I think a lot of people are looking at the universities. They're looking at the younger generation.
Yep.
And you can believe me or not, but most people probably think they're a little soft, right? So is all this soft, nurturing, protect you from everything, is it working? Is it making better kids? So 2023 study, 20% of adolescents, 12 to 17, were diagnosed with a mental or behavioral health condition, anxiety or depression. Do we think that older generations had things much worse and
yes,
they were much happier? So are we going in the right direction with how we're raising kids and how we're parenting, and even colleges with all these policies? 40% of students reported persistent feelings of being sad and hopelessness. So are all your protective things allowing it? Or are the things are the realities of life eating them alive because you are wrapping them in bubble wrap and trying to protect them from everything, and you didn't allow them to grow and mature properly? That's what I would say to that. And 20% seriously considered suicide in the past year.
That's scary.
That's a tragedy.
Yeah,
it's a tragedy, and people will attribute it to like cyberbullying and other things. Remember when you used to have real bullying? Remember when someone would beat the shit out of you before you got home?
Yeah.
That would, you had to run to your house or something. So now, right, because you've done all this stuff, you've created something which, again, cyberbullying is terrible. It follows you everywhere. It's bad, but is it as bad as really getting beaten up? Maybe someone will argue it is, but I'm saying the policies that we have done, the parenting we have done, is not working if these are the results, and they're getting worse. So we course correct. And if we can't course correct at the before there, then you as HR people have to figure out how to course correct.
You're going to have to, you as, not just even HR, first line supervisors, managers, these are your people. And you need to learn how to help get them on the right track, because otherwise your organization, your department is not going to function and you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm. You ultimately you have to do it. And you know what? Here's something that Jeff and I have talked about before, especially in our generation program, that when you as a leader have thought some of these things through and you provide an environment that somebody can grow, that they can learn a tough lesson they should have learned 10 years earlier and now are being smacked with it in reality when they come into yours. When you can provide that opportunity, you're going to create loyalty. When they know you care about them and you've thought about how we can get them over some of these things, because these are good people. It's not that we should just forget it. We're not going to do it.
You owe it to those people to help them.
Absolutely.
As a leader.
And you could differentiate yourself when you've pre-thought of these things and you have a plan and you do it tactfully. That was the one thing I thought you were going to bring up, right? You got to be firm, but tactful with some of these things, because you can't hit people upside the head with a 2x4. You have to guide them. You have to coach them into resilience. My last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you wrap up to whatever you want to say, Jeff, is the book Grit is excellent. You should read the book Grit. Should absolutely, and grit can be grown. And there's probably no level of being gritty that anyone's ever found that has been a negative. Sure, could you stick with something so long and put your teeth on it like a bulldog that it's bad? I'm sure. But we have so few people that will do that, and we have a lot of people that give up way too early and are too soft. So check out the book Grit.
Yeah, and I want to apologize to the audience. I've got severe allergies to grass and tree pollens, and I'm
I wouldn't have noticed if you didn't say, Jeff. You can't let the people know.
No, here I'm coughing away and whatnot. But again, remember, Randy and I mean, we're the crap guys. As much as sometimes we sound like we're hardcore, we both truly believe that it's really about caring, respect, appreciation, and praise. If you give your people crap, and part of caring is helping them to grow, get better as people in the organization, and become better citizens of society.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we forget about that. But remember,
caring, before you close that, Jeff, sometimes caring is correcting and not just letting stuff go. Caring can be that somebody's making a misstep and you call them on it in a respectful way. Because if you don't care about people, you'll let things slide. But if you care about them, you'll do what's best for them and you'll tell them when they're wrong. All right, now you go back to it.
Leaders who are cowards avoid issues.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not being a leader. Remember, if you like what you're hearing, subscribe, repost, all that sort of thing, because who knows, maybe on this one it was a little more controversial than we normally do. Yeah, maybe it'll go viral, and everybody will know who the crap guys are soon. So,
we let it hang out just a little bit today.
Yeah. On that note, take care. We will see you next week. And if you got questions, let us know. You got topics, let us know. We're always looking for material to talk about.
And give your people crap. Why, Jeff?
Because crap works.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm Randy Walensky.
I'm Jeff Cordes.
Have a good one.
Take care.